Thank you. It's good to see you. It's good to see so many familiar faces and names. And let me echo Eric's comment and say thank you all so much for joining us. It's a fascinating topic, and I'm going to post a picture here in the chat, which showed up on my phone just a few days ago. Um, we're going to talk about the business side of influencer marketing, but I wanted to point out that the top academic articles from the Journal of Marketing, which is number one in the world, the top two articles for the last year were about influencer marketing, right? So this isn't just uh, a trend. It's not a fad. It is a new element in the marketing portfolio that, quite frankly, I think most of us can learn a great deal from, which is a little bit of selection bias because we're all here together to learn. And the exciting thing, quite frankly, is that we're going to learn from within the web, right? Having Amanda Russell, Ava Cummins, and Anthony Polcari to talk about their perspectives and experiences in this world. So I can think of no three better people, and I'm excited to get started. So let me stop rambling. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask folks to just take about a minute or so, introduce themselves, and then we're gonna kind of jump in a bit here. So Amanda, I'll start with you, and then Ava will go to you, and then Anthony will go to you. So let's get to the important people.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Russell, and I actually got my start here at the University of Richmond on a track and running scholarship. And that was pretty much my identity and my future as I saw it. I'm from a small town in northern Canada, and it was an injury after injury, and then a final injury that ended my that chapter in my Olympic dreams and sort of the foreseeable future at that time in my life. And so that led me to having to sort of completely start over, reinvent myself from an athlete to who knows what, and which eventually led me to New York City. And I stumbled into what we now call the creator economy. And I was part of, I guess you'd say, the first wave of people to figure out how to make a living from YouTube. Back when, especially before cell phones had cameras, and back when filming yourself in your apartment was like not content, it was more like concerning behavior, if I'm honest. And I've since then built and sold two businesses. I've wrote a book called The Influencer Code. I've created the world's first accredited influencer marketing programs for business schools, including Northwestern, UCLA, University of Texas here in Austin, and now actually at Rutgers back in New Jersey. Today I advise brands mostly about their growth influence strategy, and host experiences that sound much fancier than they are, all centered around this one entire obsession belief, which is that attention and followers aren't the real currency of success. Influences, trust, which involves trust. And honestly, being back here, here on Zoom, where my whole story really started, feels like the perfect full circle moment. So thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Ava?
Hi guys, my name is Ava Cummings. I am a 2021 grad of the University of Richmond. I'm originally from a small town in New Jersey, but I live now in New York City, and I work as a growth marketing manager, focusing on influencer partnerships for a company called 3Z Brands. For those who don't know, 3Z Brands owns a bunch of mattress in a box brands, including Helix Sleep, Lisa, Nola, Birch Bear. You may have heard of us if you've ever been in the market for a new bed. Um, and I've been at my company for a little shy of 4 years, which is crazy. It's really flown by. And at my company, I oversee all influencer partnerships for our Helix Sleep line of mattresses, um, which has been a really incredible role to kind of sit in just to gain exposure in the influencer marketing space. And I'm so excited to kind of be with you all here today and just share my experience from a brand perspective on the influencer marketing space.
Great. Thank you, Ava. Ava also allows us to bring about 20 to 25 marketing students every January to New York and visit her offices and get an inside peek of what is it like to be marketing in New York. So, Ava, your generosity kind of knows no bounds. So, thank you for that. Anthony, my friend, close us out. Tell us about you.
Right. Hello, everyone. So this is my name is Anthony Polcari. Some people call me Tony. I was AJ at University of Richmond. I've had a lot of name changes. This whole creator thing. So I'm actually originally from Boston area. I live here in Washington D.C. now. I am a content creator. I also just started my own marketing agency called High Strategic Partners, where I do a lot of brand work behind the scenes, beyond kind of my more kind of public-facing ads and brand endorsements. Now, if you would have told me that I'd be sitting in this conversation talking about influencer marketing when I graduated in 2021, I would have said you're nuts. But I'm honored to be here, and my career's taken kind of an interesting turn. I was an accounting major at Richmond, loved that, but then kind of made the transition to consulting, and now here in the creator digital media space, it's been really an interesting journey. And I'm excited to talk about not just the personal journey of creators and what we go through in the marketplace today and how AI is impacting that, as well as what are the trends out there that creators are jumping on. But at the same time, my work behind the scenes and helping brands figure out their authentic voice, because it's always changing. Gen Z to Gen Alpha, beyond even millennials and Gen Xers now have a certain persona on social media and a certain feeling that they want to really get engaged with. So it's an incredible space. I'm honored to be here and to kind of give multiple perspectives on the journey with influencer marketing and actually doing the content as well. So Dr. Meyer and the whole team, thank you for having me. I'm blessed to be here, and this is going to be fun.
Good. Well, I think we're already on our way, so I appreciate that. So that's those are our guests, our spiders who are here to share their experiences. As you can tell, three very different perspectives. And so, Tony, let me start with you. I think it's important to level set when we talk about influencer marketing. Like, what are we talking about here? Are
Yeah.
these kids dancing? Is this? Of course, it's not. So I want to have all of you kind of share your thoughts of to you, what does it mean? And then to our guests who are watching, as Eric said at the beginning, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. And then at the end, Eric will manage the Q&A and have you interact and get the questions answered from our panelists. So, Anthony, back to you. When we talk about influencer marketing, what does that mean to you?
So I'll use the visual that you taught us in marketing, the top of the funnel and down. Okay. So a lot of the creators, we'll start with dancing. I started with what I call fit checks. I love wearing suits and ties. Folks at Richmond remember that from when I was there. And, I started kind of with like a fit dance and things like that. But then I started to grow deeper and start doing more storytelling about mental health, modern masculinity, about even business stuff, lifestyle vlogs. So really it's about authentic storytelling. And now where we used to see, for example, talk shows having a format and then the host would replicate that format, everybody kind of has their own talk show now, basically. That's how I would look at it. It's like every personality that on social media, from Alex Cooper, Call Her Daddy, to Mr. Beast, and to even different politicians, right? They have their own kind of sphere of influence, and they're telling their story. They're, behind the scenes vlogs. They're doing some dancing now and again. They're, videotaping, hanging out with their family and friends, and a funny comment that comes out, or they're on a podcast and they give a really great answer to a question. It's a 20-second clip. It's really a mix of things. TikTok dances, it's more trends. But for people that are doing authentic influencer marketing, it's truly about storytelling. And, we see a lot of the best creators, have those authentic stories. They talk about, mental health battles or physical health battles. And that's how you kind of get buy-in. Where like you're buying into somebody's life and you're following their journey along the way, as opposed to just seeing, hey, they can do a funny dance, right? And we're seeing that not just with influencers, but with also athletes, politicians, business people are starting to put their lives out there because people enjoy that kind of raw, behind the scenes type look.
We'll talk more about that kind of authenticity and credibility, which you kind of hinted at there. But thank you for sharing that, Anthony. Ava, you evaluate them for your brand, and so what does it mean to you when we're talking about influencer marketing?
Oh my gosh, it's such a good question. I feel like I have to explain this a lot just because I have older parents and all of their friends and my aunts and uncles like think that I sound crazy when I'm describing my job. But honestly, I feel like at the end of the day, kind of to echo Anthony's point, it's like influencer marketing is really anything where someone is extending their influence to another person. So on a very micro level, like it could just be like a friend of yours mentioning a great shirt they just bought and you wanting that shirt and buying it. Like that's a mini micro influencer moment in itself. Obviously, influencer marketing itself, when we think about that, it's like usually the bigger players and they're doing it on a mass scale. But that's kind of like how I describe influencer marketing at its very most basic level. Um, and I think from where I sit on the brand perspective, influencer is a super helpful tool for just kind of building that brand awareness, helping explain your product to people, and helping kind of build associations between creators that you like and follow and really trust and the brand that they're talking about. So it's been a huge area of leverage for my company. Super excited to talk more about that, but that's kind of like an overview there, I'd say.
You know, as soon as COVID ended, I said I'm not going to be that guy that does the mute thing, and I keep doing it. So anyway, Ava, thank you. Amanda, you've got a perspective that's a little bit broader and a little bit longer than your colleagues here. So how do you think about it, and how has it changed over the time that you've been an active participant?
Yes, so actually, the reason that I love the term influencer and hate the term influencer is because from where my background is, I actually got into this having been termed one of the first time when the word first came out, influencer, when I was doing YouTube, and no one knew what that was except for like, I mean, I remember my parents wondering if it was like legal or what like how you pay your bills, like if that kind of thought process, but it wasn't like it wasn't respected. And it was an interesting term, and especially when a term is new, you think about the word what the word is, which is influence, right? So it seemed a little odd to me to be called an influencer, like almost like being called God. I remember thinking like, can you be an all-being influencer of people? I don't know. And then being on the other side of it, which was then helping brands build their influence and partnering them with people, not just people, but other brands that could help them grow. And then shuffling into having to now take all of this and teach it, which is very different. And I applaud all teachers. No one teaches you how to teach what you do, and it was a whole different thing. Is trying to put it into perspective. And so I became obsessed with this idea of like, well, what actually is it? Which is exactly what you're asking. There's people think, oh, so you do social media? You must be like is it reality TV? Is it Kardashian, Jenner kind of stuff? And really, to take a step back, that really helps drive everything. Influencer marketing is simply, at the end of the day, what is influence? And influence and marketing is really the systemic ability to drive desired action around your desired audience. And action could be a thought, driving an idea, driving you want to vote, whatever it is. So I think that this is really the key. And influencer marketing is really, not to blanket it, but it's like the future of marketing in general. The only way, everything's a commodity now, even people. The only way to really break differentiation is to be able to have that pull over someone, which is different than persuasion. And I know there's very famous even books out there, Influence and Persuasion. I think they're very different. I almost feel like influence is creating the magnetic pull, not against someone's desire, but making them really believe and trust in that
Mm,
that's the best decision or that's the best thought or whatever for them.
mm,
Whereas persuasion is kind of like, advertising and okay, there's a discount and we really want you to do this. And so influence is really, to me, the key to success for all growth of a business, unless you're a commodity, unless
mm.
you compete on price.
Amanda, what's a misconception, right? What's a misconception that one of our guests might have about influencer marketing that you want to kind of clear up?
Yeah, but that's probably the easiest place to start is where all the misconceptions. I
Yeah.
think one, and I think I saw it in the chat. I think Sean, somebody posted in the chat like social media. Influencer marketing is not social media. Social
Mm,
media is channel. It's like the modern day telephone. If
mm,
I pick up the telephone and I recommend to Tony that I heard about this really great restaurant in Washington, D.C., you should really go there. He's not like, wow, the telephone influenced me. It was the force, it was the person, the force behind it.
Mm,
Social media is modern day channels. They're mediums for
mm,
communication.
mm. Good.
So followers, attention, that does not mean influence. That's another. So I would say social media is not, but also attention is not influence.
Mm,
Attention without trust is just more noise. So I always think about this. Actually, I got this from sitting in traffic. This this is where I thought a lot about influence marketing. When I was starting to teach at UCLA, I would drive down Sunset. If you've been to LA, this I would get stuck in the same traffic zone every single day. And in this area, there was a big billboard, and on that billboard was always the newest show or movie. And I remember sitting there thinking that I always was aware of this show, and then, but you know what? I never actually went to go see it until there was one that I went to brunch that weekend with my friends, and someone said, "Have you seen blah, blah, blah show?" And I said, "No," but I then went to watch it because of the combined effect,
Yeah.
not because they said to watch it, because I was already aware, but not even consciously aware, just aware because of the billboard. And then a friend then secondly drove that. That was a combined influence.
Yeah.
And so attention itself, you can have attention all day long.
Yeah.
It's not the same as influence.
Great example. That's a great example. Thank you for that. Anthony, you were kind of humble in your opening comments to our guests. I want to let you all know Anthony's got several 100,000 people that follow him and learn about his life with him. So what's listen, and having walked with him down the streets of DC, it's quite a scene. You get noticed a lot. But what's a misconception that you experience as a creator?
I think the whole misconception is the creative part of it in terms of like people say, oh, just post your life, just post every day. No, there's actually a lot of work that goes into it in terms of, what part of my life do I want to show, for example? Like, for me, I also do lifestyle as well as I'm actually working on creating a kind of a morning show, mini show formats on my YouTube and Instagram, things like that. So a lot of goes into the creative side because what a lot of creators are now basically are kind of mini film studios, right? They're creating content, different series about their life, about things that are adjacent to their life. And the biggest misconception is, oh, you just post your life and that's it. There's a lot of effort that goes behind the creation side. What are you going to say? How are you going to say it? Because it truly is about those first 3 seconds, especially with our attention spans now, that just seem to get smaller and smaller and smaller. It really is about not just posting something or telling your story authentically. It's about making sure you actually can make them aware in those first 3 seconds and then have them kind of draw into your stories. That'd be kind of the first misconception I would look at. And also kind of like the reach, right? Like everybody now thinks it's all about niche. You got to stick to a niche, With the invention of AI, with more kind of broad creators coming on, the fold about lifestyle, especially different types of series, it's okay to not have a niche. You can have multiple different things. I talk about golf. I talk about mental health. I talk about, kind of lifestyle vlogs. And I also do a little mini talk show. Like it's okay to have multiple reaches. So people follow people, not just for the whole package. They'll follow for little pieces. They can be convinced as well as the others. But having that broader reach is the future as opposed to years ago. It's like, okay, it's a cooking person. That's it.
Yeah.
It's now about having a much more broad appeal.
Yeah. Don't forget your very stylish clothing
Uh,
as well, which I have yet to pick up on, but I'll get there, my
You're
friend.
better than me, though. Listen. You are much more stylish than me. Okay, this is more like Don Draper 1960s type style. If you're going for that, folks.
Well, I think you're winning and I'm losing.
Uh,
Ava, to you, you listen, you manage very different brands. It might be similar products, but the brands are very different. And of course, the products differ as well. So you have different needs. And so what's kind of a misconception you think people might have about what you look for in someone to be a part of your brand?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, I feel like in general, like the biggest misconception I feel related to my work is just that influencer can seem very frivolous. Like when I say my job title, people are kind of like, "Oh, okay," and it's like, no, like my team manages millions of dollars of spend. It's a huge revenue channel for all of our mattress brands, and it's a big part of our marketing process at my company. So it's always like, you live in New York City and everyone always has big jobs and you're like, oh yeah, I'm an influencer person. But it's like really important. And like to everyone's point, it's growing, it's evolving, it's a really exciting space. But yeah, I feel like misconceptions as far as like how we go about picking creators for our brands. I think a lot of times people think that you are looking for someone who's going to make always like very aesthetic content that can be used like on social media. And that's kind of like the end all be all. Um, But to kind of echo everyone's point, a lot of times we kind of seek out creators just based on if they have that authentic voice, if they have that engagement on their channel. And it's not always about like creating the most visually aesthetic content. Sometimes some of our best performing creators, they make content that we definitely don't want to reuse because it's not exactly in the right lighting, or like maybe it's a bit too rambly and long. But just because something doesn't fit like a perfect kind of outlook doesn't mean that it's not a worthwhile investment from an influencer marketing brand perspective. So I'd say it's probably one of the biggest areas of misconception, and one that was like really difficult for me to understand when I first got started, because there'd be creators who put together really like beautiful and aesthetic and pretty ads, and then they just wouldn't perform, and we couldn't work with those people anymore because we're very direct response focused in terms of where we put our marketing spend. And I was always like, oh, they made a beautiful ad, and it's like, no, it really is more about the creator, about the trust that they have with their audience, their authenticity, and that would outweigh kind of like aesthetics any given day.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my perspective on that.
Ava, staying with you, what do you can you talk a little bit about what you look for, right? What's key when you're evaluating different possible creators to partner with? What are some of the big categories that matter to you? You talked about a few things that aren't as important necessarily, but you got 10 in front of you. What are the variables you look at to pick, and how does that come about?
Yeah, I think it's a fun mixture of like quantitative and qualitative stuff, which I really like because I feel like having gone to Richmond and majoring in business and concentrating in marketing, I have kind of that like numbers brain, but also I just love people, and I think that's like the best part of working in this space, if I do say so myself. But for us, when we're evaluating partners, some of it, yeah, as I mentioned, is very qualitative. So are they kind of the right audience? Do they have the right audience size? Does their audience kind of line up with the audience of our brand? So a great example being our brands can only ship to the US and Canada. So when we're looking at a creator, if they have a majority audience in, say, London, they unfortunately probably aren't going to be a good fit because we won't be meeting potential customers where they're at with that ad. So yeah, we look at a lot of that, kind of those qualitative or quantitative, excuse me, metrics when we're first kind of evaluating a person. And then beyond that, it really does come down to qualitative things. So is this someone I personally find engaging? I will spend time like on a creator's profile or channel and really just try to get a sense for like who they are. I try to look at past brand sponsorships to see like, okay, have they done a good job there? Does it seem like they've kind of committed to whatever agreement that they had with that brand? Does their ad kind of resonate and feel natural and exciting? Um, and also just in general, like something that I always like when I'm first starting out talking to a creator is just like, are they nice to work with? Like it's a
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
big people business. And if I'm conversing with someone over email or over a call and they're like weird or nasty or just like there's some characters in the space, that's always something that I like to avoid because um, my brand personally, when we can, we try to work with people over the same creators over and over again because we really want to kind of build out that trust. If a creator works for us, we want to continue being able to support them and work with them in a long-term capacity. So you definitely don't want to be burning on someone who's like a pain in your side. But anyway, those are some things that come to mind from,
Yeah.
yeah, a brand perspective.
No, those are wonderful. Those are wonderful. Anthony, you've worked with a variety of different clients, and having watched it over the last few years, it's been so fascinating. So what do you look for in when a brand reaches out to you and says, "Hey, would you like to partner?" Sometimes you say yes, and a lot of times you say no. And so how do you think about that?
It's a great question. So from that perspective, I think every creator has their own brand, right? And you don't want to kind of go against that and kind of, go against your own personal brand because it's about the trust, right? I have an audience, and if I work with a brand that may, have do an activity that may not work with my lifestyle or isn't really with my values, then I lose followers, I lose trust, and that makes the other ads that I do in the future not as effective. So making the choice to pick which brands I want to work with, I look at two things. Does it make sense in my storyline? For example, my first brand was Subway, and I loved them to death. I spent about a year and a half with them. It was half brand endorsement, actually half behind the scenes consulting with them, which was a lot of fun. And that started because I ate Subway in my videos every day for lunch. It made sense, right? Well, it was part of my story. It's part of the things that I do. It's something that could be easily inserted into an ad. It's like, oh, Tony would definitely use this. He would. So you know what? If he's using it, it's real. Versus, let me just slap on a logo for a thing I'd never use or I haven't even thought about using, right? So, for example, I'm not a very big gym buff. Okay, I like to go for a run. I'm not a big weights guy, all right? Having me do a weight sponsorship, that's not going to work out very well. It's going to get a lot of kind of jokey comments or some not exactly positive ones. We don't want to generate that. So it's more about that. And then also, does this match my values? Does it match, in terms of like my moral values, what the page puts out there, what I want the audience to see? Because it is part of that story too.
Anthony, I just want to come back to something. So the weight example, when
Yes.
we hear you say that wouldn't work out, it's not just it wouldn't be good for the client, but it's also a balance. It wouldn't be good for you. So it's
Right.
really about trying to find that balance, isn't it?
It totally is. And this is when I'm more behind the scenes, when I'm working with clients on their campaign strategies or kind of what brand message they want to tell. It's about personas for me. Like we learned about this, for years with technology, right? What's the persona I'm trying to attract, right? And it's not just about a demographic. It's really about, how do these followers respond? Are they more kind of a raunchy crowd? Are they a wholesome crowd? Certain products will fit well with the wholesome crowd. You can tell by certain comments, or you can tell by the type of trust or likes to shares ratio, right? Those kind of more, I would say, quantitative metrics. But when I talk to clients and then do my own stuff, it really is about, having that brand just make sense in terms of what the persona you're looking for. Yes, okay, I'm looking for maybe a certain, audience with gender, but what is their background? What kind of professionals, like, who else follows this person that has a certain type of following? Have they collabed
Yeah.
with other influencers in the same space, right? And that's a big thing with lifestyle creators. So really making sure, what persona are you looking to attract as a brand?
Got it.
And,
Got it.
are you going to stay true to your persona as a creator? Because, yes, it's authentic, but there is a numbers and business game to this.
Yeah, makes sense. Amanda, you've kind of had the pleasure of being on both sides and as you consult with companies. So, what makes a good partnership, and what does each side look for? We've heard from these and their perspectives from Ava and Anthony, but kind of as you sit back with the benefit of a little bit more experience, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, no, they're spot on. I was resonating with both sides and thinking, yeah, they, from both partnering with brands where you don't align to when working with a brand on the side where the creators horrible to work with. Um, they've kind of outlined, I think, so a lot of key points. What I think to step back a little bit in terms of partnerships. One thing I want to point out, and I think this is because this is one of the reasons I got into this field and so passionate about it, is we talk a lot about influencer marketing being working with an online creator with a following, and we use the term audience. An audience and influence, a follower in an audience and influence is not the same thing. And Eva alluded to that when she was talking about, a lot of times they don't convert. And influencer marketing by going to a creator to product place or partner is one thing, 100%. But it's also very much like the modern day advertising, right? You're basically paying someone in dollars or in kind to position your product. That is no different than advertising. It's just a different channel. And you're using more individual people's versus, history was there was a lot more barriers to entry. I think the beauty, and yes, that is one way, but if you're looking at it only that way, I think you're missing out on the real magic of influencer marketing, which
Mm,
is understanding really who has the influence over your audience,
mm,
whether or not they have a platform on social media or not, whether or not they have any kind of mass following. Like, would you rather have 1,000 people uh, listen to your business idea, or would you rather have Oprah Winfrey asked to listen to your business idea? That's offline. I mean, so I think getting back to what real influence is, and also understanding that, especially in 2025 and beyond. I mean, this was a study that I saw a couple of years ago that McKinsey did. That it was a pie chart. I'll never forget. It was a pie chart, and there was like a sliver out of the pie chart, but the rest of the blue ocean of the pie chart was like, this is your marketing army, and basically it was the marketing team and advertising team in that little sliver, and then it was the consumers, all the market. So not just the consumers, the potential consumers, like the market.
Sure.
And the reason behind that, the thesis is because the all of the potential audience is doing the marketing for you.
That's right.
So what does that mean? As marketers, as builders of brands, as influencers, what do we do with that? It's saying that it's out of our hands. It is, but it's not. The
Mhm.
future of marketing is really how do we architect ways to build our story into the marketing army, the brand, so that we become the brand, the people that are being referred to, being referred from that audience, that market. Why do you buy a Yeti? Why do you know the term Yeti water cooler? How many other water coolers can you name? So I think looking at it from that perspective as well, where how do you architect the ecosystem that creates that
Mhm.
influence,
Mhm.
whether it's a pay to play on Instagram Reel or YouTube channel, or whether it's getting enough notoriety and influence that you have physicians recommending your ankle brace, orthopedics recommending your ankle brace.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Um, Amanda, staying with you, and I think you've probably got unique perspective on this. I think I'm speculating what you might say, so let me just ask you. There's a lot of folks, a lot of fellow spiders listening, watching right now live. And they might be thinking, gosh, how does this fit into my business? And should I or should I not? So my question is, which businesses should and which ones shouldn't, let's see where she goes with this, Anthony, embrace influencer marketing?
I love that question, and because it seems to be something that is housed in the business school, and along with business and careers, I go back to the idea of a commodity. As much as we all love to think we're like these special unicorns, people are commodities now too, unless you differentiate. So it's not just housed, it shouldn't be housed in the business school alone. It is actually, we had this conversation yesterday with something entirely different and why this should be taught in every school. It's like the future of your career and business because you can be an engineer and you can be the smartest, best engineer in the room, but if nobody knows, it doesn't matter. It's not it so it needs to be along with like I mean AI is a perfect example. Knowledge is no longer the thing that we're looking for. We're looking for what resonates, what makes us feel something, what makes us feel like we belong, what calls us to action. And it's no longer so much just the person that has the smartest person in the room or the person with the most expertise. That's a given now. It's who do you want to work with? Who do you trust? And I think so the question to what business is this? What business is it not for? If you don't want to grow, if you don't want business, then maybe it's not for you. Otherwise, I think if you are in the business to be a business, to make a profit, or even nonprofit, if you were in the business to grow, you need influence, you need to understand influencer marketing, the real influencer marketing. It really is how do you influence the market?
Got it. Love that. Love that. Um, a couple years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, Chris Brandt, the head of brand for Chipotle, spoke on a session similar to this. And he was talking, for those of you that remember some of the Chipotle ads, they're kind of handheld images in the kitchen. There people, employees are talking, they're making the guacamole, they're searing the chicken. And he said the reason they went down that path was because their employees were actually filming that and posting it on their own social accounts. It was authentic. So, Anthony, coming to you, my friend, the question I've gotten most often whenever I post a photo of you coming to speak in my class or something to that effect is, first of all, it's all Gen Xers from California asking me, do you know Tony P? Which is always
Wow.
kind of interesting.
Oh,
But
I like that. The Gen X. I didn't know I had that audience. That's
you do,
great.
my friend. But the question I get is, is that guy in the videos, is that what he's really like? And if anybody on this call has that question, here's the answer. Yes, that is Anthony. And so the question and the topic I want to jump into is about authenticity, right? And authenticity on kind of both sides of the equation. So for you, can you talk about the role that plays for you and kind of knowing your strong values. And Ava, I want to ask you the same thing about when you select people. What does that mean for you balancing the audience that you're trying to get to? But Anthony, starting with you, talk about authenticity.
Wow, great question. That word is used so much in this industry. You have no
Yeah.
idea from the creator or the brand perspective. It's like always there. I think from the creator perspective, it's not just about, oh, here's my authentic life. Look, I'm filming behind a camera. It's a paradox. Okay. Like I'm behind a camera filming my life, right? Yes, it's my morning routine. Yes, it's my stuff that I'm doing. It's stuff that I'm saying, but there's a camera in front of me. So there's always going to be a little bit of like, okay, make sure I say it the right way. I say it short enough. I don't say it too long. So there's always a piece of polish behind that. Like authenticity is not 100% authentic. However, for me, it's about what do I want to make people feel with this? What is my intention behind actually putting a piece of content out there? And from my own personal perspective, it's about comforting people, making folks feel that they're seen. I'm kind of a quirky guy, always been kind of a quirky guy, and I like to speak to all the quirky people out there that like may not, I don't drink really. I don't like going out to certain places. I recite old movie lines like I'm 65, like, and I'm proud of that. Like I speak to those people, right? And I want people that may have little quirks to feel safe in my space, right? I also want people to feel that, you know what, you can talk about your mental health. So like you can talk about your struggles with, whether it be masculinity or femininity or just like life in general, being your 20s, right? I think it's about the intention. It's not just about, okay, I authentically said something. There's authenticity. And I kind of talk to brands about this a lot. I say, don't confuse authenticity with hot takes, because sometimes that can be really controversial and can actually provoke anger as opposed to actually having comfort. I'll tell brands with authenticity all the time. You either have three things you want to do. You either want to educate somebody authentically and really, bring them into what you're teaching and what you're promoting. You either want to soothe them or comfort them, or you want to provoke them and entertain them. And if you stick to that as a brand, you can kind of be like a creator, because brands, as we keep going on, it's no longer just going to be companies and creators. There's going to be emerging where companies are going to start making content that's long form. So you should practice now, authenticity as a brand as well, so that when you start putting your own proprietary content out there, it's your own voice, it's your own values, and they don't waver. Because if they don't waver, the younger audiences are going to love you for it, because they'd rather have you be kind of long and wrong. I'll use a golf term, long and wrong, versus, just kind of laying up. Go for it. Sorry, it's a lot, but I love
No,
the question. So I have.
fantastic. No, you all brought up the word before I even mentioned it, so I knew it's kind of a common thread we have to explore. Ava, what does it mean to you to find a creator that's authentic? And you talked a little bit about that, about getting to know them, look through their history, the partners they've done in the past. But and I know it's a hard one, but what does that mean to you in your brands when you're looking for authenticity?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And like to everyone's point, it's something that we think about a lot from the brand side of things. Because I think when influencer marketing starts to feel the most inauthentic is when brands enter the space and don't do it in like a thoughtful or delicate way. Um, so for me, I honestly don't think too much about like when I'm looking for someone, like, are they authentic? Are they not authentic? Like, usually everyone that we're considering working with has their own niche, their own perspective, and their own level of authenticity that they bring to the table. I think from the brand side of things, the challenge on the brand side is to continuing enabling that authenticity with the creative briefs that you're giving creators. So I'll talk about our work at Helix. When I first joined the team like 4 years ago, our influencer team was pretty small, and it was born out of a very successful podcast program. And podcast ads at the time were pretty scripted. Most creators liked getting a script and just kind of reading off that. So we kind of took that and ran with it, but very quickly realized that it was kind of the ads were falling on deaf ears because we were having people just kind of like say a very scripted thing and not really add their own perspective and their own take into the ad. So over time, we've really gotten away from scripts and focus more on enabling creators to have the information about the brand that they need to talk about it in whatever light they want to talk about it in. So instead of giving like a scripted, like, this is brought to you by Helix Sleep, or Helix Sleep sponsored this, and I love X, Y, and Z scripted line, we'll basically give them a brief that gives an overview of the company, kind of tells our story, give some value props, and then we basically tell creators, hey, take it from here and talk about what you think will resonate. So for certain creators who are parents, they end up talking a lot about our kids' mattresses and our kids' line because that really fits in with their content way more than like a standard mattress ad that they would be kind of talking about to their own um, experience. And yeah, I think just like in general, the challenge for all brands, and if you listeners, if any of you work for a brand are thinking about how to kind of break into influencer marketing, I would stay away from scripted content and just lean into giving creators the tools that they need to talk about your brand in a way that feels authentic. Because the creators are like kind of authentic in themselves. It's the brands who can sometimes mess that up.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. Amanda, no doubt there are going to be fellow spiders on this call who are thinking about, gosh, could I become a creator? They're going to be spiders that are thinking about their businesses going, gosh, um, who should I partner with to explore? So what advice do you have in this idea of kind of the role of authenticity, and what do you look for to be authentic or to ensure someone's authentic, or just your thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, it's funny that that term is thrown around so much, and it's like, what is it? And I actually ask, this is one of the first questions that I ask most of my classes is like, what is that word? What is authentic? Who can define authenticity? And it's usually like, a couple weird answers, or like everyone's kind of trying to figure out like how to put a definition around it. But okay, stop everybody. How many people, if you were, let's say, walking into a room and meeting someone for the first time, how many of you would know within a few minutes whether or not this person feels authentic to them? Unanimous. People can feel it, right? So it's one of those things that's like more than definition. It's not everything in business in the world can be measured. And I think what we get wrong so much is that we're focusing so much on trying to put a quantitative or like attribution, direct rational factors around this term that of authenticity. And if you think about it, and I've thought about how do you define it? Well, authenticity comes through. It's usually what you think matches what you say, matches what you do. But like I
Mm.
said, when you're meeting people, you're not going through that whole process in your brain. So where I think we miss the mark is trying to script that and trying to be like, are they really with their values and whatever? I think that's overthinking it, honestly. Um, Real influence comes from when it's not just about credentials or not just being like, okay, do they actually match their values? It's really the authenticity is the reflection of what the other person thinks, if they think that they are real. So I'm going to give you an example. If somebody says, if a doctor says to you, you've messed up your knee and says, okay, you need surgery. Well, they're the doctor. So they have the credentials, the experience, all of the things on paper that you go, okay, so that rationally, that makes sense. I need surgery. But then you're like, oh man, I really do. It's a big surgery. You start talking to your family and your friends, and they're like, that's a major surgery. You really need to get other opinions. You really shouldn't do that. They're not doctors. They don't have the credentials. They don't have the experience. However, they have the influence. Likely, if you're like me, anyways, you're going to get a second or third or fourth opinion, or you're going to try to go outside the route of surgery. Why? Not because of the awareness factor or because of the credentials, but because there's something in there that's trust, is that builds trust more than credentials. We tend to think credentials and experience build trust. It's actually benevolence that trumps experience in credentials. Benevolence is the feeling that someone has your best interest at heart.
Mm,
And so
mm,
when you feel that way, that's authenticity, right? Oh, yes, I know that my sister or brother or father has my best interest really truly beyond the sale of the surgery. So that's going to trump. And so I think that's where a lot of times brands miss the mark, is that they're
mm,
trying to script authenticity,
mm,
or it really requires more care. And
mm,
Ava and Tony both alluded to this as well. But I remember one of my first flops of a brand partnership was I had started my own agency and we were in Los Angeles and we did a lot of mostly in the fitness lifestyle space. And it was one of the first wireless headphones. That's how old that's how old this was. One of the first wireless headbuds. And they wanted to do like a video, like a whole content series with like running influencers and cycling influencers with these wireless headbuds. And it was like some junior, I don't know if it was some junior, some content creator, coordinator gave the script for all these creators. And I, and it sounded very much like an ad. And we kind of pushed back and we're like, I think we should really like just let them use it, let them just do their thing because it's going to sound, no, 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 we're paying this much money. Okay, that's fine, which is just then hire an advertising agency. They did. They came back. That agency went back to the brand, and the brand was like, "What the hell is this? It sounds like this is not like their content at all." And it didn't do well. And then they wanted to redo it. Well, yeah, to redo it is a whole separate cost again. But we didn't, and you pushed back. So that agency got fired because it didn't sound authentic. It had all the right bullet points in it, but it didn't convert. So I think that's a really important part to look for when you're looking for finding influencers. It's not just finding the right person, it's also making sure that whatever they are saying or doing is actually they really is feels real. And I don't even necessarily think, and this is a probably controversial statement, that it has to be 100% real. It's like if if it feels good and right to the audience, to the desired audience.
Mm,
Some are really good at this, some are not. It's
yeah.
just, I mean, you can testify or conflict that, but the truth is that's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
Not everybody that seems authentic is authentic, but as long as the audience believes it, then they're gonna they're gonna get the votes.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting perspective. That's really great, really wonderful. Um, Listen, I want to remind as we draw to a close, I'm going to do a rapid fire one question each for our panelists in a moment. But as we draw to a close, I want to remind you that Eric's going to come on in a minute with the Q&A that you've put in there and talk further with our guests. So please, if you have questions that haven't been addressed, please add them into the chat, and we'll get to those in a few minutes with Eric and our guests. Okay, so rapid fire, 10 seconds or less, and I have a timer, so I'm going to yank you if you don't. 10 seconds or less. What's one piece of advice you have for those listening who are thinking about evaluating or adding this to their marketing mix, right? Ava, let's start with you.
Give creators the tools to succeed and be authentic, and don't give them scripts.
Brilliant. Love that. I think I've heard that twice now from you and Amanda. Anthony, what do you got?
Start thinking of yourself as an entertainment company if you're a brand. Put out proprietary content because that will bring you followers yourself along with influencer partnersps.
2 for 2 on the under 10 seconds. I love
Really?
this. Amanda's going to end strong. Amanda, what do you got?
And I'm just thinking action. Like it's not whether to start or not. It's you. This is the future. If you want to break through, you just need to get started like yesterday.
Just do it. I love that. All right. Eric, I'm going to bring you on now and have you kind of go through the Q&A. But I also want to point out the four of us were together in a breakout room at the beginning, and we kind of made a quick joke about who was going to give a little bit of praise to someone who's on the call. And none of you did it, so I'm going to do it. I want to
Oh
point out
no.
we all love University of Richmond, right? It is such an institution. You know what else is an institution? Professor Joe Hoyle, who is on this call and has had all three of these students. So, Joe, thank you for being here. Everyone here is thrilled with that. Oh, Dan as well. Here, here.
Yep.
So, thanks for joining, Joe. Eric, let's bring you back on, and I'll have you go through the Q&A. Amanda, Ava, Anthony, thank you for letting me be a part of this with you, and I look forward to learning from you as Eric kind of walks you through the questions.
Right.
Hey, Joe, when you stay on, definitely, you're going to take a step back into the panelists there and be able to answer some as well. This did not disappoint. And hey, sticking with authenticity a little bit is, I think it was Dan who dropped the question in there and was just talking about influencers that he has been following for the last 5 years or so, and really seeing as success grew, brands and brands they were partnering with grew, but then it seemed like authenticity diminished as that success grew. And so the question is kind of, is there too much success that an influencer can have to a point where authenticity decreases or diminishes, which then allows new influencers or newcomers to come in and take some of that audience? So kind of open it up to everyone on it.
Yeah, I
We've
mean,
talked about this. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
no. You,
Anthony.
you go first, Ava. You go first.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say we've talked about this a bit internally at my company because there are creators who just become so big that a lot of brands who would be very interested to partner just get priced out, leading those creators to then partner with the people that can pay pretty egregious fees to work with that individual. And I think it's a really interesting question. I don't exactly know the answer, to be honest, but I wouldn't say, like, at least from my perspective, that creators lose their authenticity, so to speak, because of that. I think maybe the malaise that you can start to feel from a creator who's just like gotten so big is that they become a little less relatable to your everyday. Usually, when you start following a creator and they're doing their very earliest like posting and work and brand work, they're kind of like a normal person. And when they see a lot of success, lifestyles start to change. And yeah, with that, the brands they can partner with change. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just like there's a little bit of a disconnect for sure about creators getting so big that they can kind of price brands out. But yeah, I think the thing about influencer space is you mentioned at the end of that question, Eric, that like, will people come in and kind of take over that space that bigger creator was once in? I don't really see it that way. I think like the cool part about influencer marketing is it's kind of endless. Like there's really not, in my opinion, going to be like a takeover situation if like someone kind of loses steam, someone else takes over their viewership. Like it's not quite like that. But anyway, I'm rambling. I'll pass it off to Anthony.
That was great. No, I've gotten the term sellout a lot. I've gotten that term a lot in my comments, especially when I started my own firm, doing like, the corporate stuff and, behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. Oh, he's selling out. Here we go. Like, look, that every person that's public faces that. And a lot of it has to do with, I think, in the last, I would say 10, 15 years, this distrust in institutions. We see it in politics, we see it in media, we see it in business. This is just kind of the whole malaise in the country and around the world, this whole like erosion of trust in institutions. If this was happening 30 years ago, you may not have this whole kind of like sellout type context, right? And so with creators, and what I've also said to brands is really start focusing on it not just being a plug and play ad, or it's just like, I'm not talking about a product. The way you kind of avoid the sellout or the stale type of mantra is if you really weave in, for example, like having a skit that involves the product. That could be a really entertaining skit that brings the product into play. I see a lot of comedic creators do very well at this, where they have like different skits they'll do and they'll slip the product in there. You're not really called a sellout when that happens because it's entertaining to them. Does the ad that you're creating actually bring some entertainment or education or kind of comedic value to them? If it does, they will not call you a sellout. I've done certain ads that have been more comedic and kind of more just in my usual tone versus those that are kind of more scripted. The sellout type thing comes from the more scripted ads. So again, as Ava has said, really try to stick to kind of experiential type ads, things that are funny, comedic. You'll avoid kind of that stale construct, if you will.
There is research that does show, and I agree with both of them. There's research that does show that, and that we've done, that once a creator gets to a certain, and I'm using the term creator, not influencer, when a social media creator with a following gets to a certain number of followers, the trust factor does go down, and they get the sellout, and it makes sense, as Ava said, because it's transparent. People are getting, we know that there's getting big budgets behind them. And yeah, they might really love the product, but I think I would love the product too if they're able to pay me, 6, 7 figures for a couple of minutes of me talking about them. I'd flipping love the product, or the team. So is it authentic? Yeah, it's authentic because I do love this. But it's just human nature. We know that it's a business. It's advertising. That doesn't, and I think a lot of it's also then dependent on the person too. Like there are some creators that are known for their being more authentic and not just passing for money, but you never really know that. And typically there's a tipping point of number of followers per platform that does tend to have a drop off effect on in terms of actual attribution. However, it's what do you the question you have to ask yourself as a brand is what are you trying to achieve? Because if you're trying to achieve awareness, which is where there's a lot of confusion, brands are like, we want all these followers, and then they want they're talking about awareness when they're saying that, and then they measure their campaign on conversion. Well, conversion and awareness are two different metrics. It's like you can't run a race and then be like, and how far did you go on that trail when you were running on the different trail? Like they're two entirely different metrics. So if you are looking for awareness, then yes, then go big. It's like the billboard, go big. Can you measure conversion off that? No, you really can't. We could put all these different things around it and before and after, and yeah, they help, but you can't actually measure direct conversion. So if you're trying to measure conversion, then it's a different story.
Great. Thank y'all. I know we're coming to an end. I want to, like Joel did at the end, let's do a real quick rapid fire. 5+ years from now, with the change and the advancing every day of AI, what do y'all see influencer marketing becoming 5+ years from now?
I think the overall content is going to have to be face on and truly people behind it. There's a lot of content now that's faceless. We just saw recently that YouTube's actually demonetizing creators that don't have face to face. So with AI that can make these quick videos easily now that are faceless, you got to make sure you're partnering with influencers that actually can, have conversations. Are they interview based? Are they podcasts? Are they shows? Are they travel type programs? Because if you're doing kind of just behind the scenes, oh, no faceless stuff, that's not going to work anymore. As AI is going to take that over just like that.
Great point.
I like this question because it is AI is the entire. It's not going to be like it's not something we integrate. It's not like okay now we learn digital. It's going to be like the air we breathe. It's just like the fabric of society. And if you look at like I have a son that's under 2 years old, he's not even going to know a world without AI. And so what does that mean? We can't be worried so much about like AI versus not AI influencers or whatever. It's just going to be a part of society. You won't even know that versus before. So what does that mean? It means that the knowledge that rather than measuring things based on like screen time versus not screen time, we're measuring things first on like I think we should measure things first on meaning. So if we just have to know that everything, whether it's a person or a bot or whatever, is probably AI influenced. So the differentiator comes from the we actually it's actually making us more human. So influence will be more human, meaning that the more human side that you bring, the things that AI cannot do, which I believe is the ability to discern, the ability to interpret. Is the person in front of you, are they trustworthy? Or are they manipulating you? That becomes the higher order of things. I think as educators, it's in the educators and parents and people that are kind of can guide the future to think about it this way because if you we're no longer are we teaching the knowledge. We don't need a calculator anymore. We don't need to learn to ride a horse and buggy anymore. We're not mourning that fact. I think we need to teach higher order, actually more human, higher cognitive ability, which is to discern information, to interpret information, to be able to sit across the table from somebody, from a friend, and they're telling you everything is fine and you know that everything's not fine. AI can't teach you that. And so being able to question that and to be able to question the answers, I think that is the next level of influence. Whether it's AI or not, the influence comes in that percentage to be more human.
Thank you. Great. Ava, Joel, you want to send us out with a quick insight on that?
I'm going to let Ava have last word. I'm going to jump in. Do you remember Tom Cruise in Minority Report as he's walking by and the billboards change and address everybody individually? Personalized content across the board is going to become omnipresent for all of us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ava, close us out.
Yeah, I'll just end cap it from a brand perspective. I think there's going to be a lot more standardization in terms of just like rates and how creator partnerships are like organized. It's kind of like the Wild West still. A lot of it's still done over email. A lot of rates is kind of just like guessing. We've seen a lot of standardization in the podcast space, which kind of preceded a lot of social influencer marketing that we're doing now. And a very similar thing happened in the podcast space. So we always talk about in my company that I think there's going to be a matter of time before we're all kind of funneling our systems through one central, app or like company. I think, yeah, payments is going to become more standard across the board. But anyway, just wanted to end cap this with, I think you asked before, Dr. Meyer, how can people get started in influencer? You have three grads here that we'd all love to talk to if you guys ever have any questions or want to get started. If you're a creator, if you're a brand, I love doing this kind of stuff, and I'm always happy to be an aid to anyone who's here watching.